Welcome to the Heartbeat Chronicles, the podcast that delves into the intricate dynamic of love, sex, relationships, lifestyle, journaling, counseling, and therapy, and the messy in between. Get ready to explore the various aspects of life's heartbeat and discover insightful conversations that resonate with you. In today's episode, we delve into the lessons we wish we had known in our early 20s, the kind of wisdom that could have saved us from unnecessary heartbreaks, financial mistakes, self-doubt, and missed opportunities. Whether you're navigating your 20s right now, reflecting on your past, or simply looking for some guidance to pass on to others, this episode is packed with insights that can shift your perspective on life, love, and personal growth. Because let's be real, our 20s are often a chaotic mix of figuring things out, making mistakes, and wondering if we're doing life right. But what if we could take some of that pressure off? What if we embrace the journey instead of fearing the unknown? So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's unpack these 10 game-changing life lessons together. Trust me, some of these will hit home. Let's dive in. Hey, beautiful souls. Riley Mitchell here, and you're tuning into Heartbeat Chronicles, where every beat tells a story and every story touches a heart. To all my soulful ambassadors out there, yes, that's what we call our amazing community. Welcome back to your weekly dose of real talk and heart-to-heart conversations. If you're wondering what Heartbeat Chronicles is all about, well, think of it as your cozy corner of the internet where we get real, we get vulnerable, and most importantly, we grow together. This is where we share those life stories that make us laugh, cry, and sometimes even cringe, but always leave us with something meaningful to think about. And if you're joining us for the first time today, welcome to the family. You might be wondering about this whole soulful ambassador thing I keep mentioning. Well, it's pretty simple. The moment you choose to spend time with us, sharing in these conversations and opening your heart to new perspectives, you automatically become part of our soulful community. There's no fancy initiation ceremony, though maybe we should think about that. Just a group of people committed to growing, learning, and supporting each other through life's beautiful mess. So congratulations, you're officially a soulful ambassador now, and we're so excited to have you here with us on this journey. You know, I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately, especially about those wild and wonderful years in my early 20s. And let me tell you, there are definitely some things I wish I could go back and tell my younger self. But isn't that just how life works? We learn, we grow, and sometimes we have to laugh at our past selves a little bit. The biggest one that keeps coming back to me is about opportunities. I used to be so hesitant, always thinking, oh, I'll wait for the perfect moment, or maybe I'm not ready yet. Now I realize that when opportunity knocks, you don't just answer the door, you rush to it with everything you've got. Those chances don't always come around twice. And then there's the relationship stuff. Oh boy, I spent way too long telling myself this story about how he'll change, or maybe if I just try harder. Let me tell you something I wish I'd known then. When someone doesn't see your worth, that's not love. That's just not love. I kept saying, but he'll change, like it was my daily mantra. Spoiler alert, that was a big fat lie I was telling myself. Looking back now, I can't help but shake my head and think about all the time I spent trying to turn coal into diamonds when I deserved someone who already saw me sparkling. Today, we're going to dive into something really special. 10 major life lessons that I promise will change the way you look at everything. These aren't your typical cookie-cutter pieces of advice that you've heard a million times before. No, these are real, raw, and sometimes uncomfortable truths that I've learned the hard way, so you don't have to. We're talking about game-changing perspectives that'll make you think, why didn't anyone tell me this sooner? From relationships to career moves, from self-worth to taking risks. We're covering it all. Trust me, you're going to want to grab a notebook for this one. Let's get started with some life-changing wisdom that might just be exactly what you need to hear today. You know, there's something magical about your 20s. It's this wild mix of excitement, confusion, and figuring life out. I've been thinking a lot lately about all the things I wish someone had told me back then. Those moments where I was stressed about not having it all figured out, or times when I thought a setback meant the end of the world. Today, I want to share with you 10 life lessons that I really wish I'd known in my early 20s. These aren't just random pieces of advice. They're real insights that could have saved us all some sleepless nights and unnecessary worry. Whether you're in your 20s now, heading there soon, or looking back like me, these lessons are absolute game changers. We'll talk about everything from why it's totally okay not to have your life mapped out perfectly, to why those failures that seem so devastating are actually redirecting you to something better. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll see your 20s and life in general in a whole new light. Oh my goodness, let me tell you about the famous life plan I had in my early 20s. Picture this. I had it all mapped out in my head and even written down in my journal exactly how my life would unfold. Graduate university, land that dream NGO job immediately, meet the perfect partner by 27, married with kids by 28, and of course, own a beautiful house. Spoiler alert, life had other plans. Looking back now, I can't help but laugh at how rigid and specific that timeline was. Sure, some parts worked out. I did get that job, but everything else? Well, let's just say life took me on a completely different adventure. And you know what? That turned out to be perfectly okay. The thing about your 20s is that there's this immense pressure to have everything figured out. It's like there's this invisible timeline society hands you, and you feel like you're falling behind if you're not checking off those boxes at the right time. But here's the truth I wish someone had told me. Those boxes and timelines, they're completely made up. Life isn't about following a predetermined script. It's about growing, learning, and discovering who you are. Sometimes that means taking detours, changing directions, or completely scrapping the original plan. The beauty lies in those unexpected turns. They're where the real growth happens. Think of it this way. Your 20s aren't a race to reach certain milestones. They're more like an exploration phase, where you get to try things out, make mistakes, and figure out what actually works for you, not what works in someone else's highlight reel on social media. The pressure to have it all figured out, that's just unnecessary weight you're carrying on your shoulders. It's okay to take your time, change your mind, and let life surprise you. Let me tell you about relationships, because if there's one area of life that taught me the true meaning of failure is just redirection, it was definitely my dating life in my 20s. Those relationships that didn't work out, they weren't failures at all. They were the universe's way of showing me exactly what I did and didn't want in a partner. I remember being absolutely devastated when my first serious relationship ended. I thought I had failed at love, failed at being a good partner, just failed. But looking back now, that relationship taught me so much about setting boundaries, understanding my own worth, and recognizing red flags. Each failed relationship was actually preparing me for something better, not just in terms of future relationships, but in understanding myself. And it's not just about romantic relationships. Remember that business idea I was so sure would work? The one that flopped spectacularly? That supposed failure led me to discover what I'm actually passionate about. It taught me more about entrepreneurship than any success could have. Sometimes life's biggest redirections come disguised as our biggest disappointments. Here's the thing about failure. It's really just feedback. When something doesn't work out the way we planned, it's not the universe punishing us. It's life giving us valuable information about what needs to change, what we need to learn, or which direction might actually be better for us. Think about it like this. If you're driving and hit a dead end, you don't just park your car there and decide your journey is over. You turn around, you find another route, maybe even discover a scenic pathway you never knew existed. That's exactly what failure is. It's not the end of the road. It's just a sign telling you to try a different route. The biggest plot twist in my life was realizing that some of my best opportunities came right after what I thought were my biggest failures. Those moments when I felt like everything was falling apart, they were actually falling into place. They were clearing the path for something that aligned much better with who I am and what I truly wanted. You know what's funny? It took me way too long to realize that saying no isn't actually a bad thing. I used to be that person who would say yes to everything. Extra work projects, helping friends move on my only day off, attending events I had zero interest in, all because I was afraid of disappointing people or coming across as selfish. But here's the real truth about boundaries. They're not walls we put up to keep people out. They're guidelines we set to keep ourselves sane. Think about it like your phone's battery. If you keep running apps in the background all day, eventually you're going to run out of power. That's exactly what happens when we don't set boundaries. We drain ourselves trying to be everything to everyone. Setting boundaries isn't just about saying no to things you don't want to do. It's about protecting your mental space, your emotional energy, and yes, even your physical well being. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are valuable resources that need to be managed wisely. I've learned that healthy boundaries actually make relationships stronger, not weaker. When you're clear about what you can and cannot do, what you will and won't accept, you're actually showing respect, both for yourself and for others. You're being honest instead of building up resentment by saying yes when you really mean no. Here's a little secret I've discovered. People who get upset about your boundaries are usually the ones who benefited from you not having any. And that's okay. It's not your job to manage their reactions. Your job is to take care of yourself, to honor your limits, and to communicate them clearly and kindly. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first on an airplane. You can't help others if you're running on empty. So start small. Practice saying, I'll need to think about that instead of an immediate yes. Learn to be okay with disappointing people occasionally. Trust me, the world won't end if you can't make it to every single social event or if you need to leave work on time instead of staying late again. Let's talk about something that honestly changed my entire life: learning to love myself first. We hear this phrase thrown around all the time like it's some kind of Instagram caption, but it's actually the foundation of every relationship we'll ever have. I used to think loving myself meant feeling confident all the time or never having doubts, but that's not it at all. Self-love is more like being your own best friend, someone who has your back even when you mess up, someone who knows your flaws and loves you anyway. Looking back at my early relationships, I can see now how my lack of self-worth was writing the script for every interaction. I was constantly seeking validation, trying to fill this emptiness inside me with other people's approval. It's like I was handing out pieces of myself, hoping someone else would tell me I was enough. The interesting thing about self-worth is that it shows up in the smallest moments. It's in the way you let people treat you, the kind of behavior you accept, the relationships you choose to stay in. When you don't value yourself, you often end up accepting the bare minimum, making excuses for people who don't treat you well, and staying in situations that deep down you know aren't right for you. Here's what I've learned. The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. If you're constantly criticizing yourself, you'll attract people who criticize you. If you don't believe you deserve respect, you'll find yourself in situations where people disrespect you. It's like this invisible signal we send out to the world about how we expect to be treated. The game changer for me was realizing that self-love isn't selfish, it's necessary. It's about having enough love for yourself that it overflows into your relationships rather than trying to squeeze love out of relationships to fill yourself up. When you truly love yourself, you stop accepting less than you deserve. And you start attracting people who match your energy, who respect your boundaries, who add to your life rather than drain it. Oh, let me tell you about one of my biggest I wish I knew better moments: financial literacy. You know what's funny? When I was in my early 20s, I thought I was being smart with money just because I could pay my bills on time. Spoiler alert, there's so much more to it than that. Let me tell you about my biggest financial regret. I used to spend almost my entire paycheck within the first week thinking I was living my best life. Designer coffee every morning, lunch dates with colleagues, and don't even get me started on my online shopping habits. I was basically treating my salary like it was monopoly money. The harsh reality hit me when I needed emergency dental work, and I had absolutely nothing saved. I had to borrow money from my parents, and let me tell you, that walk of shame to ask for help was a wake-up call I'll never forget. It really made me wish I'd started learning about money management sooner. Here's what I really want you to know about money in your 20s. It's not about restricting yourself from every joy in life, but about making informed choices. Start with the basics. Create a budget that follows the 50-30-20 rule that I talked about in our episode on Money Matters. If you missed on this episode, I suggest you run my darling. It is a game changer. That's 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and investments. Trust me, your future self will thank you for every dollar you save today. And investments? Don't let that word scare you. I used to think investing was only for Wall Street types in suits, but it's actually for everyone. Start small with a retirement account or low-cost index funds. The magic of compound interest means that starting in your 20s, even with small amounts, can lead to significant wealth later on. Credit cards aren't evil, but they need to be handled with respect. I learned this the hard way after maxing out my first credit card on essentials like festival tickets and new clothes. Build your credit score responsibly by paying your full balance each month, not just the minimum payment. Remember, financial freedom isn't about having millions in the bank, it's about having options. Every financial decision you make today is either opening or closing doors for your future self. So start building those healthy money habits now, even if it's just putting away a small amount each month. Your 30-year-old self will be so grateful you did. You know, one of the hardest but most important lessons I've learned is that not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. I used to be that person who held on to relationships way past their expiration date, thinking that loyalty meant keeping people around no matter what. But life has taught me differently. I remember this friendship I had in college. We were inseparable for years. We had all these inside jokes, shared secrets, and I thought we'd be in each other's lives forever. But as we grew older, I started noticing how every interaction left me feeling drained. She had this way of subtly putting me down, making comments about my choices, my career, even my relationships. I kept making excuses for her behavior because I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. It took me way too long to realize that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to let go. People come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Not everyone needs to make it to the lifetime category, and that's okay. This applies to romantic relationships too. I spent 2 years with someone, trying to force a relationship to work simply because I'd already invested so much time in it. But you know what? Time invested isn't a good enough reason to keep investing more. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that a relationship has served its purpose and it's time to move on. Recognizing toxic relationships isn't always easy. They don't always come with obvious red flags like abuse or betrayal. Sometimes it's as subtle as feeling like you can't be yourself, constantly walking on eggshells, or realizing that your growth is being stunted. Pay attention to how people make you feel. If someone consistently drains your energy, makes you doubt yourself, or doesn't celebrate your wins, it might be time to evaluate that relationship. The beautiful thing about accepting the seasonal nature of relationships is that it makes room for new, healthier connections. When you stop clutching so tightly to relationships that no longer serve you, you create space for people who align with who you're becoming, not just who you used to be. Let's talk about taking risks. And I don't mean the reckless, throw caution to the wind kind. I'm talking about those calculated steps outside your comfort zone that make your palms sweat but could potentially change your life. You know, I spent years playing it safe. I had this comfortable job right out of college, decent pay, nice coworkers, clear career path. Everything looked good on paper. But every Sunday night, I'd get this knot in my stomach thinking about another week of doing something that didn't light me up. I kept telling myself that security was more important than satisfaction. Looking back, I was really just letting fear make my decisions for me. Then I met this woman at a conference who had started her own business at 25. She told me something I'll never forget. The biggest risk is spending your life not doing what you really want to do. That hit me hard. She wasn't suggesting I quit my job tomorrow. She talked about smart risk-taking, making a plan, having savings, doing market research, starting small on the side. Here's the thing about calculated risks. They're like muscles. The more you exercise them, the stronger they get. Start with small steps. Maybe it's speaking up in that meeting when your heart's racing, or finally asking out that person you've been interested in, or taking that online course in something completely different from your field. I've noticed that the moments of greatest growth in my life have always come after I've pushed myself beyond what felt comfortable. Every time I've taken a thoughtful risk, even when it didn't work out exactly as planned, I've learned something valuable about myself. It's like each risk builds this internal confidence that says, hey, even if this doesn't work out perfectly, I'll figure it out. Remember, taking calculated risks doesn't mean being reckless. It means doing your homework, having a backup plan, and then having the courage to jump even when you can't see the whole staircase. Because here's the truth. That comfort zone you're clinging to, it's actually pretty uncomfortable when you really think about it. It's just familiar discomfort versus unfamiliar possibility. Let's dive into something that took me way too long to understand. Healing isn't just something that happens to you, it's something you actively choose to do. And honestly, it's probably one of the most important responsibilities we have to ourselves. I remember thinking that time would magically heal everything. You know that saying, time heals all wounds? Well, I've learned it's not just about time, it's about what you do with that time. It's like having a physical injury. Sure, it might eventually get better on its own, but proper treatment and rehabilitation make all the difference. One of the biggest game changers for me was finally starting therapy. I used to think therapy was only for people with serious problems, but here's the truth. We all have stuff to work through, whether it's childhood experiences, relationship patterns, or just figuring out why we react the way we do to certain situations. Therapy gave me tools I didn't even know I needed. Then there's journaling. And I know some of you might be rolling your eyes right now. I was skeptical too. But there's something powerful about putting your thoughts on paper. It's like your brain can finally stop trying to hold on to everything. Sometimes I'll read back through old entries and realize how far I've come, or notice patterns I couldn't see when I was in the middle of things. Self awareness is another crucial piece of this puzzle. It's about being honest with yourself, about your part in situations, your triggers, your patterns. It's not about blame, it's about understanding. Because once you understand something, you can actually do something about it. I've learned that healing isn't linear. Some days you feel like you've got it all figured out, and the next day something triggers you and you feel right back at square one. But that's okay. The important thing is to keep showing up for yourself, keep doing the work, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Remember, you can't control what happened to you, but you absolutely can control how you heal from it. It's not easy work, but it's worth it. Because every step you take toward healing yourself creates ripples that affect every area of your life, your relationships, your work, your happiness. You know what's funny? I used to think being nice meant saying yes to everything and everyone. I was that person who would exhaust myself trying to keep everyone happy, answer every message instantly, and solve everyone's problems. Let me tell you, that's the fastest route to burning yourself out. I've learned that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. Think of your energy like your phone battery. You wouldn't let everyone drain your phone battery just because they asked, right? So why do we do that with our emotional energy? One of the biggest energy drains I had to address was social media. I was constantly comparing my life to perfectly curated Instagram feeds, getting caught up in Instagram drama, and feeling this weird obligation to keep up with everyone's stories. Now, I set specific times for social media, and I'm not afraid to use that unfollow button when something consistently brings negative energy into my space. Then there's the people in our lives. This was a tough one for me to learn, but not everyone deserves unlimited access to you. It's okay to create distance from people who drain you, even if they're family. Some folks seem to thrive on drama, always having a crisis, always stirring up problems. I've learned to love them from a distance. I started paying attention to how I feel after spending time with certain people. Do I feel energized or exhausted, inspired or drained? This became my compass for deciding who gets what level of access to my life. It's not about cutting people off completely. It's about creating healthy boundaries that protect your peace of mind. Your environment matters too. I used to think I was just naturally anxious, but then I started noticing how my space affected my mood. A cluttered room, constant noise, even certain colors, they all impact our energy more than we realize. Creating a peaceful environment isn't just about aesthetics. It's about designing a space that supports your mental health. Remember, drama-free doesn't mean problem-free. It means choosing not to engage with unnecessary chaos. It means being intentional about where you put your energy, because at the end of the day, your peace of mind is worth protecting. You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about this constant rush we're all in. We're always chasing the next big milestone, that promotion, the perfect relationship, the dream house. And while having goals is great, I've realized we're missing out on something incredible, the present moment. I remember when I was laser focused on getting my dream job. Every day was just a countdown to that someday when I'd finally make it. I was so fixated on the destination that I completely missed the beautiful chaos of the journey. The late night study sessions with friends, the small victories, the lessons learned from mistakes. All of these moments had their own magic that I was too busy to appreciate. It's like we're always living in this future version of ourselves, waiting to be happy when we achieve that next big thing. But here's what I've learned. If you can't find joy in the process, you probably won't find it at the destination either. Life isn't a series of checkpoints to rush through. It's more like a dance, and you don't dance just to reach the end of the song. Think about it. We're all guilty of saying things like, I'll be happy when, or life will be better once. But what if the when and once never come exactly as we imagined? What if we're missing out on thousands of beautiful moments while waiting for that one perfect one? I've started practicing what I call present moment appreciation. It's simple, really, taking time to acknowledge where you are right now, even if it's not where you ultimately want to be. Maybe you're still in that starter apartment, but have you noticed how the morning light hits your coffee cup just right? Or maybe you're single, but have you celebrated the freedom to discover who you are without compromise? The truth is, every season of life has its own flavor, its own lessons, its own type of joy. The struggling times, the uncertain times, the growing times, they're all part of your story. They're all worthy of your attention and appreciation. So, yes, keep those dreams and goals. Keep working towards them. But don't put your joy on hold until you reach them. Because life isn't waiting for you at some future destination. It's happening right now, in all its imperfect, beautiful glory. Wow, what a journey we've been on together, exploring these 10 life lessons that I wish I'd known in my 20s. Looking back at everything we've discussed, it's amazing how these insights all work together to create a more fulfilling life. Remember, you don't need to have it all figured out right now. That pressure we put on ourselves, it's usually unnecessary. And those failures that feel like the end of the world, they're actually redirecting you to where you need to be. Setting boundaries and learning to love yourself aren't just self-help buzzwords. They're the foundation for everything else in your life. And let's not forget about getting smart with money early on. Future you will be so grateful. Some of the hardest but most important lessons are about relationships. Understanding that not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever, and that's okay. Taking those calculated risks, even when they're scary, and doing the work to heal yourself, these are gifts you give to yourself. But perhaps the most valuable thing I've learned is that protecting your peace and enjoying the journey aren't luxuries, they're necessities. Your energy is precious, and this moment right here is your life. These aren't just lessons to read about and forget. They're invitations to live differently, to be kinder to yourself, and to create a life that feels good, not just on paper, but in reality. Your 20s might be messy, uncertain, and sometimes scary, but they're also filled with potential and possibilities. Trust the journey, trust yourself, and remember, you're exactly where you need to be right now. Wow, what a journey we've been on today. You know, Talking about these life lessons from my early 20s really hits home for me, and I hope it's been just as meaningful for you. There's something powerful about sharing these experiences. It's like we're all sitting in this together, figuring out life one step at a time. I genuinely believe that the insights we've discussed today could be game changers for many of you. Instead of looking back in your 30s with those dreaded, I wish I had moments, you can start making those meaningful changes right now. That's the beauty of learning from others' experiences. We get to skip some of the hard lessons and jump straight to the good stuff. It's funny how sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected places, right? Whether it's about relationships, career choices, or simply learning to trust our gut, these insights have the power to reshape our path forward. And remember, we're not just talking about avoiding regrets. We're talking about building the life you actually want to live. Out of all the lessons we've explored today, the one about not comparing your timeline to others really stands out. It's like we're all reading different books, yet somehow we keep checking to see what page everyone else is on. It's completely natural, but letting go of that comparison game can be incredibly freeing. And then there's that powerful lesson about investing in yourself, whether it's your education, your health, or just taking time to figure out what makes you tick. I can't stress enough how those small investments in your 20s compound over time, just like a good savings account, but with way better returns for your life. Looking back at our discussion about relationships, both romantic and platonic, it's clear that learning to set boundaries and recognize your worth isn't just a nice to have skill. It's absolutely essential. The people you surround yourself with in your 20s often shape who you become, so choose your circle wisely. And speaking of wisdom, let's not forget about financial literacy. Sure, it might not be the most exciting topic, but understanding money management in your 20s is like giving your future self a huge gift. Start small, stay consistent, and watch how these habits transform your life. Maybe you connected more with our talk about career flexibility and not being afraid to pivot. Remember, your first job doesn't have to be your forever job. Your 20s are the perfect time to explore, make mistakes, and figure out what truly lights you up inside. Hey, Soulful family, I'm super excited to tell you about our amazing merch collection that's currently running. We've got something for everyone, and I mean everyone. Whether you're a coffee lover, a fashionista, or just someone who wants to carry a piece of our community with you, we've got you covered. Picture starting your day with your favorite brew in one of our beautiful mugs, or hitting the road with our stylish travel mugs. For all you book lovers and shopping enthusiasts, our tote bags are perfect for carrying your essentials while spreading the Heartbeat Chronicles vibe. And don't even get me started on our incredible selection of clothing. From cozy hoodies to trendy t-shirts and sleek tank tops, we've got your wardrobe sorted. But that's not all. We've also got the cutest pins and magnets that'll brighten up any space, stickers to personalize your belongings, and gorgeous tapestries and wall art to transform your living space. Need a new phone case? We've got those too. And for the ultimate comfort, check out our beautiful pillows. They're perfect for those deep reflection moments we love to talk about. You can find all these amazing items in our merch store. The link is right there in the description box. Make sure to check out our Instagram handle at heartbeat_chronicles or my personal handle at Soulful Riley, where we regularly showcase our latest designs and share how our amazing community styles their merch. I know you want to stay connected with our soulful community, so let me tell you exactly where you can find us. We're literally everywhere you love to hang out online. On social media, you can catch us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, and Threads. Just search for Heartbeat Chronicles Podcast. We're always sharing extra content, behind-the-scenes moments, and connecting with our amazing community there. Now, if you're more of a podcast person, we've made sure you can tune in wherever you prefer to listen. You'll find us on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and YouTube if you like to watch while you listen. But we didn't stop there. We're also on Rumble, Pods Network, Buzzsprout, Podcast Index, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Pocket Cast, Deezer, Listen Notes, Player FM, Overcast, Castro, Castbox, Podfriend, and Good Pods. Here's something you'll want to remember. We drop fresh episodes every Tuesday at 12 p.m. East African time, and subscribing is completely free on all platforms. If you want to make sure you never miss an episode, just hit that notification button on your favorite platform. Trust me, we've made it super easy to get your weekly dose of soulful living, no matter where you are or how you like to consume your content. Pick your favorite platform and you'll find us there, ready to share more meaningful conversations and insights with you. I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt thanks to all our incredible, soulful ambassadors. You're the ones who make this community so special, whether you're liking, commenting, sharing, or just taking the time to tune in. Your engagement and support mean the world to me. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, send me a DM, or share your favorite takeaway on social media. Your stories and perspectives make our conversations richer and help others in our community feel less alone on their journey. And hey, if you're enjoying the show, why not make it official? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. If you're feeling extra generous, leaving a review helps other soulful seekers find our little corner of the internet. Remember, I'm always eager to hear your suggestions for future topics or any changes you'd like to see in the show. Our DMs are always open, and your feedback helps make this podcast better for everyone. Until next Tuesday, keep living soulfully, keep growing, and keep spreading those good vibes. Can't wait to connect with you again for another heart-to-heart conversation. In today's episode, we delved into the 10 life lessons I wish I had known in my early 20s. Lessons on love, growth, finances, boundaries, and embracing the journey of life. If there's one thing to take away from this conversation, it's that life is not about having it all figured out, but about evolving, learning, and becoming the best version of yourself. Your 20s are a time of exploration, mistakes, and self-discovery. Whether you're in that phase now or looking back on it, know that every experience, good or bad, shapes who you are. So take risks, love yourself first, protect your peace, and never stop growing. I'd love to hear from you. What's one lesson you wish you had learned earlier in life? Share it with me on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok. Let's keep the conversation going. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need to hear this today. Thank you for being part of the Heartbeat Chronicles family. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep showing up for yourself. See you in the next episode.